Good evening. It's Dave Hobby. I'm happy to be here.
Hey, Dave. Glad to see you there. Where are you driving in from?
Work, that ugly word.
And what part of the country are you in? Because I know we met last in California, but I think where do you live?
Yeah, I currently live up in the Seattle-Tacoma area, not too far from Mount Rainier National Park.
Cool. All right. Well, hi, everybody. We are now recording. This is live. And what I want you to do is participate as much as possible today. I'm going to give you my job, give you as much information as I can, answer as many of your questions that I can, and help you make 3 or 4 key decisions during this webinar. Your job is to learn as much as you can, ask questions when you're confused, and there are going to be 3 or 4 key sections. Make a decision at the end of each section. Some of you may think you're here for information. You're really here for transformation. Information doesn't help much. Transformation can help a lot. So start out with, if you haven't already, type in the chat box. The chat box is down at the bottom, but you can type in where you're calling in from and what would you want to get out of tonight. The other key thing, and let me see if I can do this. I'm going to test my technological skills here and see if I can share my screen and get it to work right. And hold on a second, not working right. It's always great to start out like this. Hold on one second.
Somebody had asked where you are, Paul. I believe you're down in Monterey, correct?
I'm in Santa Cruz, and you've got a big-ass echo on there. So close to Monterey. All right, let's see if I can get my technology to work. All right, it is not working. All right, I'm just gonna, oh, there we go, hopefully, all right. Here we go. Can everybody see this? Just give me a thumbs up. It's not moving yet. Can you see my YouTube video? There we go.
You know what the secret of life is? No, what? This. One thing. Just one thing. If you stick to that and everything else to me, that's great, but what's the one thing?
Okay. We got to mute somebody. There's a lot of background noise. So if you're rustling around, if you can mute yourself. I think I got it. I think that was Beverly. All right. So that was Billy Crystal. The movie was City Slickers. And the guy says one thing. And tonight we're going to talk about one thing. And the one thing that most people don't talk about in relationships that makes the biggest difference. What is the one reason that people are in a relationship? At least according to me in 20-some years of researching it. What do you think the one thing is? Could you either raise your hand or type it in? What's the one thing that you think it is? So I see connection as one thing. Love is another. What else? And Jeff, that's still on private, so if you want to share it with the group, they could all get your love. What else? And this is important. It's like, this is the important essence of this whole training we're going to do tonight is I'm going to dive into what that one thing is. Know yourself and others, deepen humanity through the journey, intimacy, all of these are great. And security, those are all parts of it. I'm going to tell you, here's the one thing, according to the studies that I've done, and Tony Robbins and several other people, but the one thing is getting your needs met. Now that might sound like it's selfish or all the rest of it, but I want you to test it. So I don't want you to believe it just because I said it. I want you to test it. So think about it. What happens to a relationship where you love each other, but your needs aren't getting met? What happens to that relationship? So you can say thumbs up, thumbs down, it ends. And during this, I'm going to interact with different people. So yeah, Benjamin says bye-bye. So you can still love each other. In fact, those are the most painful relationships where you still love each other, but you don't know how to make it work. You don't know how to get your needs met. So tonight we're going to dive into the 7 core needs and the 3 parts of dealing with your needs. Number 1 is to be able to establish what your needs are. So number 1 is establishing. Number 2 is embracing and actually feeling like we're okay to have needs. And number 3 is to express it and be able to ask for them. And over here, I have a whole page of notes because I want to make sure that I get everything in. So periodically, I'm going to be looking over here. So I'm going to introduce myself to the people who don't know who I am. I am Paul Sterling, and I am a relationship and intimacy coach, but I sure did not start out to be one. In fact, I went through 1 divorce, 4 broken engagements to get to where I am. And along the way, I had a pretty successful career. I studied with some really smart people. I studied with originally Robert Kiyosaki, the guy from Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and then Tony Robbins and Byron Katie and Richard Bandler and Tony Robbins. And when I stumbled across somebody called Marshall Rosenberg, the creator of nonviolent communication, that turned my relationships around forever. And so hopefully tonight you won't have to spend as much as I spent. I spent almost a month in Sweden with Marshall and about $5,500 to learn what I'm going to try to condense, at least the essence of it tonight. You're not going to get the whole thing I got in that month, but you're going to get a good chunk of it tonight. Well, let me see what else. Oh, yeah, there's a huge difference. How many of you, and this is by show of hands, I'm going to open it up so I can see everybody's hands here. How many of you, by show of hands, want an ordinary relationship?
Where you should show your hands?
Right there. I saw. How many of you want an extraordinary relationship? Okay, so tonight is about extraordinary relationships, and it's not about the, let me make sure I mute some other people. So we're going to dive in and go for the extraordinary. And I have an interesting thing. I was in yoga today, and the thing, I go to Bikram yoga. Any of you familiar with Bikram yoga? Yes, no, that's that hot yoga where you go and sweat your ass off. And here's the odd thing. I don't really like Bikram yoga that much. And I go like 3 or 4 times a week. And if I could just send my body in to do yoga and I could stay home, I probably would do that. But you can't have somebody do your yoga for you. And the thing about relationships is you can't have somebody do your relationship for you. Does that make sense? There's no free pass. And it doesn't matter. I have clients that are literally rocket scientists, doctors, lawyers, very successful people, movie stars, actors, actresses, business people. One of the 4th richest guys in Hawaii was one of my clients. There's no free pass when it comes to relationships. And so tonight is for people who want to go from dabbling to mastery. And this is where thank you. All right. So our challenge here, or let's see, does everybody agree that needs are, if not the most important reason to be in a relationship, they're right up there in the top? Yes, no, getting your needs met in the top? Okay. So what's the problem? I mean, if that's a solution, it should be simple. We just go to our partner and say, hey, I'd like to get my needs met. So what stops us from having this happen? Well, one of the things there are going to be two main things that stop us. Need shame is number one. Is we are taught in this culture, what's the word when somebody talks to you about their needs, what are they normally called? And type it in or call it out. So if someone wants to raise their hand and interact for a second, who'd like to interact with me for a second? Just raise your hand. I will pick on you if you don't pick yourself. Okay. Dave, yes. I am unmuting you, I think.
Okay.
Good. Oh my God, I didn't see you carrying stuff on
It's okay. I'm game if everybody else is.
All right, so when somebody talks about their needs, what are they normally called?
Well, for some people, they need sex, they need love, they need kinesthetic.
No, I'm not talking about what the needs are, but when somebody talks about their needs, what do people call that person?
Usually a spouse or a girlfriend or boyfriend or a partner.
Okay, I'm going for something I'm not getting, so I'm not asking the right
What
question.
about needy?
I'm sorry.
Needy, thank you. There we go. We had somebody call it out. I didn't set you up to win there, Dave. It's my deal, not yours.
No, it's my fault because I'm like carrying stuff in.
I'm going to mute you again, so you're muted. All right, so Darnell, am I saying that right?
No, it's Danielle.
Danielle. All right, can I play with you for a second on that?
You can.
All right, so is needy a compliment or an insult?
Well, I certainly wouldn't call it a compliment, but I'm not sure that I would call it an insult either.
Well, we use it as an insult, as a sign of weakness. You're needy.
Right.
It's never a sign of like, wow, look at how powerful you are. So that's one of the problems is we have needs shame in this culture. And what shame is when we believe that we're defective. There's something wrong with us for having needs. And so when we have need shame, and then we don't even have a language, like there's doctors on this call. And so what is a doctor? Doctor has a whole set of language around the body, around health that they can use that we don't have. And if you want to have a healthy relationship, and you have to have a language, and the language is around feelings and needs. And if we're ashamed of them, it's hard even to talk about them. So the idea tonight is to look at what are those 7 core needs and how can we create a dialogue where we can start to understand what they are and how do we improve them and how do we make them work. All right, so thank you. I'm gonna look, let me see if I can share my screen again. I have a need to look good, and so sometimes it's going to be a little bumpy here with my technology. All right. Here we go. The other part of a relationship is this thing right here. It's this bell curve, and people that have been in a long-term relationship will understand exactly what this is right here. And let me see if I can move this out of the way. All right. On the beginning of a relationship, it's easy to win, hard to lose. You're in a state of gratitude. Then what happens is if we start to drop out of the relationship, and this can happen in weeks, months, years, it becomes easy to lose and hard to win, and we take each other for granted. And when we're doing that, we stop meeting each other's needs. Now, what I'm trying to talk to you about tonight, needs is part of a bigger piece, and that bigger piece is called your ROS. So who here is our computer geeks? Anybody here wise around computers? All right. Dave again. Okay, there we go. So Dave, what's your operating system for a computer?
Well, either Windows or Macintosh, right?
Right, but what does an operating system do? What happens to your computer?
It's an interface. It's an interface for software to utilize the hardware. It's an interface between the two.
Okay, so Dave, I want to sell you a operating system, and it was created 40 years ago. It is full of bugs and viruses and defects, and it was created by an angry 5-year-old. How many of, oh, by the way, and it will make all the most important decisions of your life. How many of these do you want?
An angry 5-year-old that'll make all the most important decisions of my life. That sounds complicated and dangerous. Maybe none.
It is, and it actually is. That's our, and it's not our operating system, it's our ROS, our relationship operating system. And when you get a program, say Microsoft, I'm going to mute you again. Well, you get Microsoft Word or something like that, that gets put on top of the operating system. The operating system is invisible to most of us. And so in relationships, we go to a weekend workshop and we learn some new technique and strategy, and we go home, we try it on a relationship, and it's like trying a new program on top of a defective operating system. So one of the things we want to do is find out what is your operating system, your ROS, and that's your habits, patterns, and beliefs that were created as a little kid. And so tonight, when I start talking about your needs are part of your belief systems, and they go into your operating system. So I mean, that sounds all intellectual, but we're going to bring it down into your heart in a minute. But is it making sense so far? ROS, relationship operating system. And can you think of one that it's controlling you? Your beliefs right now, your habits, patterns, and beliefs are controlling your relationship. So let's dive in there, and we're going to look at the first phase of this. Whoops, hold on. I have something that has needs here. Come on. My cat had a need to come in and was going to make a lot of noise until that need got met. My cat has no problem expressing their needs. All right, so let's, I'm going to share again the screen and bring up your needs. There are 3 phases we go through, and what I want to do is see from each of you where you think you are on your needs. We start with, we're ashamed of our needs, like we think that we shouldn't have them. We're embarrassed by our needs, which is embarrassed by your needs. That's where it's like you have needs, and in the beginning of a relationship, it's really cool because your partner will meet your needs without you having to ask for them. But where it gets a little dangerous is when you, later on, when you think that your partner should meet your needs without you having to ask, and if you have to ask, they don't love you. So that's the embarrassment phase. You're not able to talk about your needs. And the third one is where you share your needs, and it's like when you share your needs, it's almost like you're giving yourself, or you're giving your partner a chance to give you a gift. And it's, you're not embarrassed, you're not ashamed, you're actually excited about it. So how many people are somewhat ashamed of their needs? How many people are embarrassed about their needs? And how many people are embracing their needs? So let me see if I can see, I can't see everybody at once. So maybe you could type it into the list here. Ashamed, embarrassed, or embracing. And let me be clear, I don't want to sound like someone who's perfect all the time and always embracing my needs. The reason I teach this class, they say you teach what you need to know. There are plenty of times when I can go into my fear and be ashamed of my needs or embarrassed by my needs, and I don't want to look vulnerable, because that's the thing. When you start to express your needs, you're vulnerable. And there are 7 core needs. Oh, there we go. Let me see if I can. Make that so. And I'm going to go through these needs, and what I want you to think about, all of you have all 7 of these needs. What makes you unique is what priority they're in and what strategies you use to get them met. So as we go along, what I want you to be able to do, and this is this place where you're just even establishing your needs. And I'm going to tell a story before we dive into these. So I'm going to bounce back out. We're going to come to these in a second, but I realize I didn't tell you my story. So let's see, who can I play with? Rhonda, can I play with you for a minute? Okay, I'm going to unmute you. So Rhonda, and I know you're more enlightened than most people, so I'm going to ask you to talk about those other people rather than you. Okay. But when other people are on the highway, like Highway 10 or something, and somebody cuts them off down there in LA, what is their first feeling normally?
They're mad. They're really angry.
Yeah, it's road rage. And then how do they let them know that they're mad?
Typically they'll give them the bird, right?
So they give them some hand gesture, you know, what else?
Maybe they'll honk, you know, maybe they'll actually drive in a way that isn't safe to let them know that, you know, you cut me off, you screwed me.
Yeah, they can do a bumper check, or they can go in front and do a brake check, and they can, you know, I taught, one of the things I did is I taught in prison for 8 years, and one of the inmates there said, I now know, and I told this example, he says, this is why I'm in prison. I pulled out a Glock. He pulled out his revolver on somebody that had cut him off and ended up in jail.
Wow.
So here's the interesting thing. I'm going to take the same example. Somebody gets cut off. Let me ask you, if you had a car full of kids and you got cut off on the highway, what would your first reaction be? What would your first feeling be?
I probably would say, boy, that wasn't really smart.
Yeah, what was the feeling?
Oh, I would still be pissed off.
What's the feeling before that? I'm leading the witness.
Fear, because I've got the kids in the car.
Fear, and what are you needing?
Well, I'm not feeling very safe. I mean, I've got a car full of kids.
So stop there. So you're feeling afraid, needing safety.
Right.
Okay, I'm still leading the witness a little bit. Feeling fear, needing safety. So let me ask you, which one of these strategies will make you safer? Giving the other car the finger, beeping at them, running up on their bumper, or getting in front of them and doing a brake check? Which one of those makes you safer?
I would do nothing, actually. I would just say, what an idiot, and I would take no action.
Or, well, that's an action. You might back away. So if your need is for safety, what are the things you could do?
I would get as far away from that car as I could.
You get away from the car, you could call 911. You could do a little beep if you think they're unconscious, you know, and you're just a wake-up beep, not an angry beep.
Right.
So here's the thing. Anger is typically a secondary emotion. I know I'm talking to the mind right now, but I want to talk to the heart too. If we're not connected to the primary emotion, a lot of times our behavior guarantees we're not going to get what we need. If we need safety and we're driving crazy on the highway, we're making things worse. Now, if we take that same thing in our relationship, we're needing, if I wanted a hug from you, Rhonda, and I came and said, wow, you're being cold and distant and aloof, you crazy whatever, give me a hug.
I'm not going to get it, as opposed to if I said, hey, I need a hug.
Yeah, and what might you be feeling if you wanted a hug?
A connection.
Well, what might you be feeling if you want a hug?
I want physical touch. I want connection.
All right, I'm asking you what you're feeling. So I'm just telling you.
I'm feeling empty. Okay, or I'm feeling needy, or
right. I'm feeling scared or needy or lonely, or I'm wanting that connection. And see, What happens, though, is to do that, you have to be vulnerable.
Right.
To do the other one, you don't have to be as vulnerable. The problem is the other one doesn't work.
Yeah, you're right.
But we never bring this up to our conscious mind and have a conversation, go, does this work or doesn't this work? Is this making sense to everybody? This is thumbs up. This is a little bit. This is thumbs down. So what happens is when we get in a relationship in the beginning, we're getting our needs met because the other person's going out of their way to meet our needs. But we're both busy. And slowly they start to back off and less of our needs are getting met. And it's embarrassing and vulnerable, so we don't want to ask, and we go, they don't love me anymore. And so we get in this downward spiral. So number one is to start establishing what our needs are and being able to have a conversation on it. So everybody, do me a favor. When somebody volunteers and we work with them, what I want to do is this is our way of saying thank you. What we do is we blow them a kiss. So we go, so let's blow Rhonda a kiss, everybody. Ready? Thank you, Rhonda. And hopefully everybody will volunteer at some point here as we move through this. So I'm going to bounce it over and look at what are the 7 core needs that we all have, and I'm going to talk about them. And as we're going through them, what I want you to do is look at which ones are most important to you, at least right now. So number one, what is certainty? Certainty is the first core need. Certainty is what allows us, and who wants to volunteer to interact with me now? Because each one of these, all right, Dave, let me grab somebody else who hasn't volunteered yet, and I'll come back to you, Dave.
I'll go, Paul.
Okay. So here we go. What is certainty for you?
Honestly, I don't have a whole lot of certainty, so I'm probably not the best for this one.
All right. Well, do you drive a car?
Yes, I'm certain of that.
All right. Have you ever driven a car where you're going at 60 miles an hour on a highway and somebody's going by you at 60 miles an hour in the other direction, and the only thing that separates you is a silly white line painted on the pavement?
Absolutely.
That's certainty. Certainty is what allows you to drive down the road and not freak out. And so in a relationship, we need a certain amount of certainty. That means that you can trust their word. When they say they're going to do it, they do it. They keep their word. Their word means something. There's an agreement. That allows certainty in a relationship. And so part of what's going to happen is everybody that's on this call, I'm going to mail you out a PDF with all of these handouts so you can go through this. And when you go through it, what you want to do is look at certainty right here. And so, Jeff, if you were in a relationship, you might sit down and go, okay, how much certainty do I bring? So that would be the blue column. He gives. How much certainty does she bring? And you would put that in. And then you would look at the bottom here and go, how important is certainty to me on a scale of 1 to 7? 1 being most important, 7 being least important. And what happens is sort of like a customer report, a customer survey to find out your partner is your customer, you're their customer. So certainty. So what happens, I'll play one more with you, Jeff. What happens if I cook for you and I cook the same meal every night for 10 nights in a row?
I have a 9-night minimum or maximum.
Maximum. So you get bored. What do you need?
I need variety.
So that's number 2. So in a relationship, we need certainty. And then because God or Goddess had a great sense of humor, we need variety. This is how come somebody like Hugh Grant, who was married to Elizabeth Hurley, who based on some standards in the world, some agreement, said that Elizabeth Hurley is one of the most beautiful women in the world. Hugh Grant is married to her, and what does he get busted for? I don't know if you remember this.
Variety.
Yes, variety. He gets busted for prostitution, soliciting prostitution in New York City. What was he looking for? And I'm not condoning it, I'm not condemning it, but if you don't bring if you don't meet the needs in a relationship, what happens is people will go outside the relationship. So this is a critical conversation that needs to happen. How do you create variety within a relationship? It can be vacation. In the bedroom, it can be role playing. It can be all sorts of things. It can be different foods that you eat. It can be travel. All these different things, you have to create a certain amount of variety. Now, some people love variety. It's their priority. And some people, it's not as important. So what you'd want to look at is how important is variety to you on a scale of 1 to 7 here, and how much of your need for variety is being met. And this is why some people end up in monogamous relationships, because they have a stronger need for what? Certainty. Some people are polyamorous because they have a strong need for variety. So it's important to start knowing. The first part of this is you're establishing what are your needs, what are your priorities, and what are your strategies. So the first part of this training is all about the establishing your needs. So who else would like to go here? We'll bounce. Thank you. Let's blow Jeff. Okay, so everybody ready? 1, 2, 3. Mwah. Thank you, Jeff. So who's next to shout out? And just unmute yourself and let's hear from one of the feminine bodies here today.
I'll go.
All right. And you're calling in from Australia, right?
Yeah, in Sydney. Hello, everyone. Hi.
Yay. And this magnificent woman calling in from Australia is part of the, she's going to be co-teaching on a divine masculine and feminine webinar in February. So she's in. So go ahead. Let's see. So the next one, significance or priority. How important is that to you in a relationship?
I would say pretty important, actually, but it can be on par with other things. Like, I don't have to be most important, but it is high priority.
Yeah, and there's a difference. There's like, we can make somebody a priority in the moment. So what that means is, like, it doesn't mean that 24/7 I'm thinking of you, but when I'm home, I'm not going, yeah, honey, yeah, no, it's, yeah, it's like, okay, you have a half an hour right now, and I'm going to focus on you. I'm making you my priority right now. What can I do to make you feel loved and connected? And so what we want to do, and this is important, this is like in all relationships, especially with your kids. Do you make your kids feel like a priority, even 10 minutes a day, where they get to feel really significant? And you can look at this. There's there's a lot of new age thinking where they go, well, you should just make yourself feel like a priority, and you shouldn't care about what anybody else says. And that didn't work for me. I need to be in a relationship where I feel like I'm a priority, not 24/7, but at least maybe once a day. So
I completely agree. I couldn't agree more, Paul. I think that was really beautifully said, and you understood what I meant. Absolutely.
Yeah. And part of the reason, one way to know you're in a great relationship is you feel better about yourself when you're in that relationship. And what's a codependent relationship is normally I feel worse about myself in the relationship, but I feel desperate to have it. Like it's more of an addiction than it is a healthy, like I feel really good that I work out. You know, that's the healthy part. So the other side here is love and connection. So how important to you is love and connection?
To me?
Yeah.
Paramount importance. That's probably the most important thing for me, looking at these things, actually. And closely followed by intimacy.
And we're going to break intimacy down in a second, and we'll see somebody else do it. But so when you come to a relationship, what do you bring as far as a scale of 1 to 10 as far as love and connection?
So now I will speak of this present moment, having had, you know, a marriage under my belt, etc. Now I can bring an open heart. I've done a little bit of work and I can bring an open heart, meaning that I can also bring an open mind, and I can bring the touch, the feel, being present, all of those things to the relationship that are, well, maybe they won't pay the bills, but they'll make the home life better so you can go to work and not hate yourself more. I don't know. Something like that.
Well, one of the things I want to bring up here is that in our culture, we sell the idea that if you look right, if you have the right breast size or the right lips or the right muscle or the right bank account, then you'll have a great relationship. And I think that's the biggest disservice we can sell, because what you're talking about, the ability to love, to bring an open heart, that to me is what creates the best long-term relationships. Because I know plenty of people that are the beautiful people that have really miserable relationships. And what they need is the skills. So you can be beautiful and have the skills. So, all right. Do you want to do one more? How do you say your name right?
Okay, it's because it's European. I was born and raised in former Yugoslavia, so the J is silent. So it's Diana.
Diana.
Diana, yeah.
Okay, so you know, da очень хорошо мне другие speaking. Watching. Now that's as close as I can get. I probably just stepped all over your toes. I'm sorry.
It's all good. Nice try.
Thank you. Well, you know, all right. By the way, one of the most important tools that we can have for getting our needs met is the ability to communicate. I think that's why we developed language. Language is something that we added on, and it's a really important skill. Most people never master it. They know how to talk, but they don't really know how to communicate. So let's just ask you about intimacy. Now, there's three types if you look at it. There's emotional, physical, and sexual. And the reason that I broke them up, especially, and I'm going to talk about masculine and feminine, but the reason I broke them up, especially for the feminine, is sometimes they get collapsed. Physical and sexual gets collapsed, and your partner touches you, and they want to give you a hug, and it's like, not tonight. And it was just a hug. And you would have gone for a hug, but you didn't want sex. So what comes up for you thinking about emotional, physical, sexual intimacy? How important is that for you?
Yeah, right. Like really closely tied with love, connection. I love intimacy in every way, in communication, in touch, sexually, like in every way. But again, this is something that's happened over time and with maturity. And I'm really comfortable to talk about it as well. I have absolutely no problems voicing, you know, having having communication around that, even though I can't speak in this current moment.
Well, one of the things that I wish I'd brought it up. It's not in this set of slides, but most people, intimacy is really, they say they want it, but it's really awkward and uncomfortable, and they don't. Because intimacy is outside of your comfort zone. Intimacy, it's allowing you to see into my vulnerabilities, my fears and my weaknesses and my dreams and desires. So I'm sharing that part of me that's vulnerable, and it's scary. And part of the time what happens is if I get scared, I get triggered, and I go into we're going to bring these guys out later, but my reptile brain. Oh, my green screen just eats up my, it just vanishes. Anyway, so we're going to dive into that. So what's a strategy for you? What helps you feel intimate emotionally?
Do you know what it is? the first thing that comes to mind is that I am confident speaking love language or intimacy language. That's really important to me. That wasn't the case when I was younger. That absolutely feeling language, like expressing how I was feeling, was like, are you kidding me? Like, I'd rather go and vomit in the toilet, or might actually go and vomit in the toilet from anxiety, than be able to say that I was, feeling something.
How many people can relate to what she's saying right there? It's especially true for men. I know men that would rather literally jump out of a plane over enemy territory in the middle of the night than talk to their partner about their fears and vulnerabilities. Like, that's how conditioned it is into the masculine. And I know that there's plenty of feminine that have maybe not as extreme as the masculine, because it's part of like our DNA that we've been conditioned. And so this whole conversation is about the unraveling of that conditioning so that they can talk about it.
Yeah.
And it
can be really difficult. It's really, really difficult. And what I have found more recently is, even though I can, and it's a priority for me, when I'm with my partner, if he's unable to even receive what I have to say, and we're talking like this, I'm sort of here and he's sort of here, and we're like fly-by nights kind of with this particular aspect, it really does take a lot of patience and higher perspective to be able to be patient.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk more about that, but here's the thing. This is really important. It's part of what we do is set our partner up to lose. So I want you to set your partner up to win, and one of the ways to set them up to win is to understand how men or the masculine is wired. And I deal with straight couples and gay couples. So when I say, I'm going to say more of masculine, feminine, I've had women with masculine traits talk about the same thing. So the masculine is wired. When the feminine comes to us in either pain or upset, we think it's either our fault or our responsibility. And so the longer you're in pain, the more we've fucked up. So we want to get you out of pain as quickly as possible. That is the opposite of intimacy. So I'm going to give you a quick solution for that. This is a writer-downer. Mm-hmm. Feminine, and I have my feminine part. I have my part where I come in pain. So this is also, I'm speaking for me too. But when we come in pain, the important thing is to say, honey, here's what I need. I need you to listen and feed it back. I need empathy right now, not ideas. So can you do that? Because if they can't, if their cup is emotionally full, and that comes from, by the way, I wrote this book. It's a bestseller. If you haven't read it yet, it's really good. I'm going to tell you at the end how to get a free copy of this book, which is really cool. But it talks about cup stuffing. And cup stuffing is when your partner's cup is full emotionally, like they just came home from a tough day of work. They got a speeding ticket, a flat tire. And you go, honey, we have to talk. I want you to listen to my emotions. And it's like, you see him running back out to the car.
You want to do it yourself? Okay.
Okay, so we need someone to mute because I'm hearing you in the background, which is very cool. So let's look at this. Physical intimacy. How important is physical intimacy? And then we're going to bounce on to the next one.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So again, going back to my culture, Eastern European culture, or certainly the culture around me that I grew up with, is very, very touchy-feely. Even men kiss on greeting. You know, it's going to be at least like 2 kisses on each side. It's all like holding hands and acknowledging each other. There's lots of reaching out towards each. So physical touch, that sort of intimacy, even with strangers, is absolutely within the core of my being, because this is what I grew up with, and it's very important to me.
So you just revealed to me some of your beliefs, and that would show what actions you take and results you get, which is different from a lot of our cultures. Here in America, we're a mix, depending upon where in America. Some places are very open to choice and the gay, the lesbian, the whole choice movement, and some places are very homophobic. And men holding hands or kissing is like, terrifying. So it depends on their beliefs, their actions, and their results. And one of the things I noticed you started saying is almost like you have reprogrammed your relationship operating system from when you were younger. So you've updated your operating system. And this is the model we go through when you look at it, your relationship operating system or your intimacy operating system. And when you look at the actions you take, it's your habits, patterns, behaviors, those produce results. And what happens is this is a cybernetic loop, and we're trying to break this loop by giving you a vision for something different. So let me bounce back over here. The last thing is sexual, and then we're going to blow you a kiss, but are you familiar with the 5 love languages?
Yes.
Are you familiar with the 5 sexual languages?
Not so much, I don't think.
So there's 5 languages in the bedroom that are equally important, and what would happen is if you don't speak your partner's love language, you're not going to have the, oh my God, please do that again experience in the bedroom, or you're less likely. I'm just going to go through, this is just a tiny teaser for the long-term, more advanced course, but the 5 love languages, and Jaya came up with these, or the 5 erotic languages are erotic, sensual, sexual, kinky, and shapeshifter. And if you want to know more about those, you're going to have to come to another event. But it's really important to know what yours are and what your partners are so that you have more connection in the bedroom. And see, if you tie this need back into the need for variety, it doesn't mean you get stuck in one of those. It means that you learn about all 5 of them and you can play around with them and you can have a lot of variety in one relationship. So let's blow you a kiss all the way to Australia. Ready?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, who's next when we talk about growth and contribution? Who haven't we heard from or haven't heard recently? The good doctor.
I'm willing.
All right, hold on. Let's grab the doctor and then we'll get you next. Okay. Can you introduce yourself, Mr. Posner?
Yes, my name is Dr. Michael Posner. I'm glad to see everybody here tonight. I'm glad to be here. Hi, Rhonda. Glad to see you looking great.
All right. So, Mr. Posner, how important is growth to you?
Extremely. It's the most important thing in my life.
And I know you, so I'm giving you leading questions here, but it's not just something you talk about. Like, where did we meet?
We met at a mastermind group in my room when I was adjusting you.
Yeah. This is a master chiropractor, by the way. And we were at what I would call a high-end workshop where you spend multiple thousands of dollars for basically 4 or 5 days. And most people are not that committed to their growth. And this is not the only event you go to. You go to regular events because you're committed to growth.
Correct. I am constantly seeking conscious evolution.
What would happen to you if you were in a relationship that wanted to stifle your growth?
It would be very painful to me.
Exactly. And that's the thing that we've got to look at it, because if you're not growing, what are you doing?
You're devolving.
Yeah,
Right.
You don't stay the same. You get worse.
yeah, so you're growing or dying. So you can look at where, here's the interesting thing. One of my mentors, Alex Mendoza, and I don't know if you've ever heard of him, he said, you can tell what's important to somebody by looking at their checkbook and their calendar. Or at this point, you can look at their cell phone and their credit card and see where are they spending their time, where are they spending their money. Because most people will say relationships are important to them, but they've never taken a workshop, they've never gone and done anything about it. So what would it be for you? What would it be like for you if you couldn't grow?
I would be depressed for sure.
Yeah, and that's what happens. People that aren't getting their needs met, they're depressed. And if they're told that they shouldn't, that those needs aren't important, and other people tell you what your needs should be. So if you're looking at this group of needs right now, from certainty, variety, significance, love, connection, intimacy, growth, and contribution, what do you think your number one is?
I would say love, connection.
All right, number two?
Intimacy.
Number three?
Significance and priority for sure.
Number four?
Uncertainty, variety.
I'm gonna challenge you a little bit, just to think about this, because we've already said this. What do you do for a living?
I'm a chiropractor. I remove nerve interference from people's spines.
Right. And which one of these 7 needs does that meet?
Kind of all of them.
I'm guessing that the dominant one, though, is contribution, that you got into it to contribute.
There are several reasons. I got into it for growth, contribution, love, connection.
And here's
the
interesting thing about your career. What makes people happy in their career is when it meets many of their needs simultaneously.
Yes.
You know, a lot of people end up in a one-need career. It meets their need for certainty, they get money. But it doesn't meet a lot of the other needs, and they end up really unhappy. So what I want you to look at is, everybody here, what's your number one? Put your number 1, 2, and 3, type it in the box. Which one's number 1? Which one's number 2? Which one's number 3? And so go back again, Mr. Posner, which one's number 1, 2, and 3 for you? Just to remind me.
Growth, significance, connection, contribution.
All right.
Wait, growth, contribution, love, connection.
Yep. Got it. And so what is, for you, what's a strategy for love and connection? What makes you feel loved and connecting?
When I give of myself to people and they respond positively.
So when you get to give a gift and they receive it?
Well, the gift of healing, or something that I teach them to relax or to be more conscious in their daily life. All
right. Thank you. Let's blow Mr. Posner a kiss. Thank you. I'm going to mute you. And then I'm going to take this away, but put in number 1, 2, and 3 in the chat box. And I'm going to stop sharing the chat box for a second so I can come back around. And I can't read the chats while I'm in there. So connection, contribution, intimacy, love, connection, intimacy. And here's the thing, is it's different for every person. We all have the same 7 needs here, but what's your priority? And then what's your strategy? What's your strategy? Say, Dawn, can I ask you, What's your strategy for feeling connection? I'm going to unmute you. I think maybe I am. There we go.
Okay. Hello.
Hi, Don.
Aloha. What's my strategy for connection? Well, being around lots of people, being of service.
So can you give me a specific example of something that made you feel really connected?
Cooking and selling my items at Art Walk.
And where are you calling in from?
From Kauai.
Oh.
I'm Tony's friend.
Oh, okay. Aloha. Tony is a dear friend of mine from Kapa'a. And when I go live in Hawaii, Tony and I are the best of friends. So, all right. I'm going to move on to the next phase, which is embracing it. So what I want everybody to say is, my needs matter. So repeat after me. My needs matter. My needs matter.
My needs matter. My needs matter.
My needs matter. Now, your needs matter too. So say that. Your needs matter too.
Your needs matter too. Your
needs matter too.
Matter too.
Your needs matter too.
The idea here is to be able to have a conversation where my needs matter and your needs matter. And it's not that I get to, we look at some of the politicians today and it's all about them getting their needs met in spite of other people's needs. And so there's one side where we become a dictator, and the other side is we become a martyr. And what we're talking about here is where both sets of needs matter. So we're going to have to learn how to embrace our needs, look at what strategies we have for meeting our needs, and then what would be the next thing? What do we need to do to be able to get our needs met? So who'd like to go? Yes, Tange, I can see you there just ready to talk. It's like, no, it won't work. All right. We'll leave you behind. Who else would
I'll go.
Okay.
I'll go.
Go ahead.
Pamela.
All right. Hi, Pamela.
Hi there, Paul.
Okay,
so what's the question?
So what we're in is my needs matter. How does that resonate for you?
It resonates very well because my needs do matter.
So answer.
I have no problem saying that.
So how do you ask to get your needs met?
Well, I just put it out there in a way, not a demanding way, but I would tell my partner what I need.
All right. So I want to have everybody, and Pamela, I'm going to give you this. Do you have both hands free?
I do. The phone is on the table.
Okay, so I want everybody to follow along, watch my hands, and I'm going to have to describe it to you. I'm putting my hands together in the prayer position right in front of my face, and I'm going to ask everybody to do the same thing. So I'm going to wait a second until people get their hands free. All right. Now, when I say go, what I want you to do is press really hard with your right hand. Press really hard, press harder, press harder, press harder. Okay, stop. Look around, everybody. Where is everybody's hands? So, Pamela, where are your hands?
They're right in front of my face.
So what did your left hand do?
My left hand pushed back with equal force.
Why? I said just press really hard with your right hand.
I did.
And why did your left hand press back? I didn't say press with your left hand.
It was a natural response.
See, that's the key thing. This is what's going to stop you from getting your needs met. If you don't understand this concept, you're going to always run up against resistance, because anytime that we perceive that we're being pushed, what do? We push back. And one of my mentors and really wise women is a woman named Allison Armstrong. And what she said is women demand too much and ask for too little. And what happens with a demand is you get resistance. And then the more resistance you have, the more force you have to use. But if you can make a beautiful request, the masculine tends to want to meet that request. The masculine tends to want to be the hero still. And so it's learning how to make a request versus a demand, because demands get resistance and requests often get met. Is that making sense, Pamela?
Absolutely.
And I have, like, it's really interesting. You can't see it. I have pages and pages and pages of testimonials from people who've gone through the training and started understanding their needs better. I'm just going to read one from my friend Ben. And Ben, when they came to the course, him and his beloved, they had been roommates for about 6 years in the same house. And they had had so many upsets that his wife literally slept downstairs with the door locked some nights because there was so much of a strife between them. And after going through I have a 90-day course. They went through the 90-day course, said my relationship was so broken and was only a matter of time before it ended. We had turned into roommates rather than partners, and only roommates that were living together out of necessity. And part of the necessity is they had an 8-year-old daughter. We were only about halfway through the course, and I can already see unlimited possibility. The book of life now has chapters of blank pages at the end for me to write in whatever story I want. And at the beginning of the course, he thought he had one need only. What do you think he was? What do most men get told they only need?
Sexual.
Yes.
Sexual.
And there's nothing wrong with this beautiful need for sex. It is an amazing need.
Beautiful.
But he thought it was his only need. And what he learned in the course is he had a whole potpourri of needs and was able to open them up. So that's what we're going to do today, is look at that. So let me just bring up, and this one, Pamela, I'm going to have to drop you off and grab somebody else. Well, I'm going to try to do it. They'll be seeing something you're not going to see, but you'll get the handouts. Where are you calling in from?
San Diego.
Okay. So what are the 3 things, now everybody else is seeing the answer to this, what are the 3 things that you want when you're communicating? What do you want your partner to be doing? Or what do you want to feel like? I'm probably not answering.
Listen.
Huh?
Listen to. Listen to.
Yep.
Appreciated.
Yep.
Cared for.
Yeah, I have, and the way this looks is I have something that's going to become the Star of David. So there's 2 triangles. So the first triangle I have, you almost nailed it perfectly without even seeing it, is heard, understood, and valued. And so we need to really get our needs met, we need to advance communication tools. So as we're expressing our needs, we want to make sure that we're heard, understood, and valued. Does that resonate with you?
Oh, absolutely.
And now here's the tip on how to communicate in a way that makes sure that you're heard, understood, and valued, and you don't get, I'm showing everybody else, but telling you the resistance where people are pushing back, where you're expressing what you think is this incredible, beautiful need, and what you're getting is resistance, resentment, and regret. So there's 3 ways, or 3 tools, or 3 ways of being that you can bring to your communication. Number 1 is consciousness. Number 2 is compassion. Number 3 is courage. So consciousness is, I know that what you think you're hearing is often different than what I think I'm saying. And if I want to have powerful communication with you, I'm going to check in on a regular basis and go, Pamela, can you tell me what you just heard me say? So let me try that. Can you tell me what you just heard me say?
Yeah, that often what we hear is different from what we're actually saying. or often the other person, what the other person hears is different from what we're actually saying. So we need to kind of ask them, I just want to make sure you really understand me in this moment. Can you maybe just repeat what I just said to you so I can make sure that you did hear it?
Well, I would, thank you. Thank you very much. And I would be a little careful of how that's said, because what I want to do is I want to take responsibility. So I would say it a little bit differently. You're right on the right path. I would say, wow, can you tell me what you heard me say? Because I want to make sure I'm being clear. Otherwise, the other person gets defensive and thinks that they're on trial versus I'm on trial. I want to make sure that I'm saying it clear. Oh, I thought I said I love you, and you heard that I think you suck. Let me try that again, because that's not what I wanted you to hear. So I'm taking responsibility for what you heard. Mm-hmm. It's a very different way of communicating. The next one is compassionate. So compassionate is meeting somebody where they're at. And then courageous is to speak from your heart. And I want to be careful not to step on too many toes in this one, but I will. Rather than coming from a book and saying this book, whatever it was, the Bible, the Quran, whatever it is, said you should do this, I want to hear what's your experience. Come from your heart. Tell me what's alive in you, what you're feeling and your beautiful needs. Please don't lecture me based on a book, even if it's a really good book. Tell me how that beautiful book has impacted your life. So if you want people not to resist you, speak from consciousness, compassion, and courage. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And when you put that all together, you end up with something that looks like the Star of David. There's heard, understood, and valued, conscious, compassionate, and courageous. And for the people who I can see you, this makes sense. Thumbs up, thumbs down. And Pamela, the last question I have, can you think about an upset that you've had in the past? Which one of these pieces was missing?
Probably courage.
Uh-huh. What else? Did you feel heard and understood?
Not always. Not always. I think for me, it's more being valued for my own feelings. So I could be heard and I could be understood, but maybe not as valued as I want to be.
So what would it take for you to feel valued?
I guess for the other person to show that they value my feeling on that they can appreciate it.
All right. And
the next time that situation would happen, perhaps that they would respond in a way that shows me that they valued that.
All right. I need to say this. Can I pick on you for a second, Pamela, just a little bit?
Absolutely, Paul.
All right. So it sounded really nice what you said, but it's incredibly vague. I would not feel set up to win with you. It's okay. Like, what should I do? Be nice. It sounds right, but I have no idea what the hell does be nice mean. So what you want to do is figure out how to set them up to win so I know what I should do. Should I feedback what? So I'll give you an example. So next time, could you tell me what you heard me say before you give me any advice? That would help. Or can you ask me before offering me ideas? Okay. See, these are all things that I could do where I'm set up to win. That makes sense?
Yes. Or asking them specifically, what can I do to make you feel more cared for?
Exactly.
In this situation.
All right. So let's blow, Pamela. We're all blowing you a kiss. You may not see it, but we're still doing it anyway. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Let's blow her a kiss. Thank you.
Thank you. I felt it.
Good. All right. So here's what we've gone through so far. To take a relationship from ordinary to extraordinary, we need that one thing. What's the one thing? The thing that makes relationships work. is when you're in a relationship where you're getting your needs met at 6s, 7s, 8s, 9s, and 10s. I've never had anybody come to me and say, Paul, I'm getting my needs met at 7s and 8s and 9s. In all 7 areas, I think I'm going to get a divorce. So anybody ever think that that's going to happen? So if you want to make your relationship bulletproof, or whatever term you want to say, what you need to do is start getting all your needs met and meeting your partner's needs and having a conversation and enjoying it. And I'm not asking anybody to become a martyr where all you do is take care of their needs. You're also taking care of your own needs. And one of our 7 core needs is to contribute. And you can tell a relationship starting to get into the deep shit meter. And by the way, I spent 18 years as a commercial fisherman in Alaska, so I still have that commercial fishing vocabulary. But when your partner doesn't allow you to give to them anymore, it's like, do you want a foot rub? No. Can I get you a glass of water? No. It's like, you know something's going on, and there's trouble when your partner stops allowing you to contribute to them. So what I'd like to hear is from a couple of people, what have you gotten from tonight so far? Raise your hand. Who'd like to share what you've gotten so far? Dave. Whoops. You're unmuted.
I guess, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right, I think my microphone's just like way over here. Maybe this is better. I guess communication and need structures. I think that's a really great review that you did for me on part of it, and a lot of new good information on the other parts. So I thank you for that.
All right, so let me just ask, I'm asking you, but I'm asking everybody, because we learned something, and I asked you to make some decisions. Now that you understand the difference between making a demand and making a request, the demand is like you're going to use force, request is you're going to enroll them. Which one are you going to use in the future, if possible?
Well, I need to be more careful to make sure how I'm phrasing things is in the request form, obviously. And how to do that, I'm really not sure. That's probably why I need the next class.
Well, this is an introduction. This is one of the more complicated things in our relationship. It's the foundation of relationships. It's like, oh yeah, I learned everything I needed to know about being a chiropractor in an hour-and-a-half webinar. Like,
I mean, honestly, I thought I was making requests with a lot of these things, but I can tell that the way the hand's pushing back, I'm not. So, or that's not the way it's being received. So obviously there's some work that needs to be done on my side, and obviously maybe on the other too.
Yeah, and you can do this on your own. And I'm going to read you a testimonial in a second about somebody that did it on their own. And they were actually going to be on the call. This is a woman whose husband, they've been together for like, I think 25 years. Her husband had lied, cheated, been with strippers, done, like the whole thing. And almost everybody that gave her advice, by the way, I am a relationship coach, but I am not in the advice giving world. I wanted her to learn some skills and then make her own decision. And what she learned when she started to learn about her needs and his needs, it transformed their relationship, and it's better than ever. And I'm going to read that to you right now. Just where is that one? I started out feeling hopeless and alienated in my marriage. I wondered if it was over and used this workshop as my last effort. I came away feeling empowered, hopeful, and willing to surrender unconditionally, lovingly to my partner. The future is wide open, and we get to choose from awareness, not from pain. And she told me that her 25th anniversary was the best anniversary they'd had in years. In fact, for the last 4 years before that, they actually weren't even together on their anniversary. They avoided each other on their anniversary because it was so painful. So thank you. Let's blow Dave a kiss.
Thank you for sharing.
What about you, Beverly? Do you want to share what you've gotten so far? You can nod your head, or you can say no, or Beverly, you want to share? Okay. We're not hearing anything back. What about you, Krista? Hold on, you're unmuted.
All right. I was kind of meditating on it as like this paintbrush that's just washing over me because I was driving and stuff, and I was like, it feels like there's these like little crucial pieces that are coming together, but they're like embedding in me kind of in a like quiet way. Trying to think specifically. I think one of the key points is I've been practicing compassionate communication, and I'd never really got the piece about when you're asking someone to reflect to you, that you actually can frame it in a way that can disarm that potential problem in that. And I had never picked up on that before. Yeah. And then, let me think. I would have to kind of think. I was kind of, let's see.
While she's doing that, I'm going to say something about Krista. She is my webmaster, and when you look at my new website, the arguelesslovemore.net, if there's things beautiful about that website, it's because of her. If there's any screw-ups, it's because of me. So she's a videographer too, and she rocked it. And boy, I was not an easy client for her either. I was a big pain in the ass.
No, it's a good thing that you bring all your skills to the table, and thank you very much for that kind introduction. And I am inspired by this webinar. I want to take a look at the materials more. And I mean, would you do me a favor by jogging my memory a little bit right now? I was like eating dinner while I was listening, but I was listening.
All right. So number one, we went through what's the most important thing is in a relationship. The only reason to be in a relationship is to get your needs met.
Oh yeah, my needs matter, your needs matter. Yeah,
my needs matter, your needs matter. There are 7 core needs. There's a lot of other needs, but those 7 core needs, that's a kind of a mix of Tony Robbins meets Marshall Rosenberg meets Paul Sterling. So it's a combination of all of those. And figuring out which needs are a priority, which ones are your strategies, and then not using force. And the difference, I think, for a lot of people is the difference between a primary emotion and a secondary emotion. And a lot of times we talk about things like, I feel judged or I feel made wrong. And those are actually not feelings.
Yeah,
I feel abandoned.
That was huge too. Yeah, I mean, there's gold in here. Seriously, I hope you're recording this.
I hope I am recording it too.
So, yeah. And the thing about asking women, that quote I think is amazing. Women tend to demand too much and ask too little. And I've noticed that about myself. And I think that's gold.
Yeah, because it makes it fun for the masculine to give to you. So thank you. Let's blow Krista a kiss.
Thanks, guys. Nice to see you all.
Anybody else want to share what they've gotten before? Okay, yes, let's bounce up to Rhonda.
So it's and I apologize, I've got to jump off the call in a few minutes after this, but I've spent the last 6 weeks or 5 weeks actually recuperating. I had, out of nowhere, I had a bowel obstruction. So I ended up in the hospital getting 12 inches of my intestine removed and spent 7 days in the hospital. And then I came home, and 2 days later, I was back in the hospital for another 10 days with another obstruction. And so I've only been home and out of the hospital for about 2.5 weeks. But the thing that, I really got, Paul, from looking at all of this, okay, is, and I've been married, my story's kind of interesting. I was married for 28 years. I have 2 kids, 27 and 29, got divorced for 6 years. And then 3 years ago, remarried the guy I divorced. So I jokingly say I have a husband and a husband. And, what really happened in terms of this illness was that I really saw that I had somebody that was literally right there in every step of the way, in every one of those 7 boxes that you talked about. Like on Thanksgiving morning, I had no clue how sick I was. And he literally just said, "Get your coat, we're going back to the ER." I wouldn't have done that. You know, that to me, talk about communication, it's about, you know, really having that person's interest, and regardless of what I was saying, I had no say in this. He just said, get your coat. He was already on the way to the door, you know, taking me back to the hospital. And I probably would have died if I didn't go back. So, and the other thing that I noticed too, you know, was the nonverbal communication, you know, and you talk about that, right? Here I am with the tube down my throat, and I kept saying, go home, you know, and he's sitting in the hospital room the entire time, you know, like doing work. So I got a whole different view of my relationship over the last month. And that's why this is so timely, Paul, you know, in terms of the way that you're presenting it, because I really never knew, you know, for me, one of the things that I've always said was important in a relationship, and in the 6 years that I was not married, was, is that person going to be there for me through sickness and health, you know? And that was one of the criteria that I looked at when I evaluated somebody. You know, are they going to be there? I know I would be that person that would be there, but are they going to be there? You know, and I always knew that about my husband. But when you face a life or death situation like I was in, literally, you know so much about that person and the communication skills that you talk about. So I really want to thank you, because what I really got was how blessed I am to have what I have in my life. And you know, and also you talk about making people wrong, right? You know, that whole thing. And I, you know, I can see my own behavior and my own communication style really differently. And one of the things I learned through this whole process was, you know what, it's not worth fighting about all the little stupid stuff. It's like, oh, you want to watch this movie? I want to watch this movie. Fine, let's just watch the movie you want. It really doesn't matter, you know, where before it could have been something that could have created a lot of friction, you know. It's like a choose your battle kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I really, you know, I really appreciate taking what I've been through in the last 5 weeks and putting it into a context where I can just be in a state of gratitude.
Yeah, and that's that chart that I showed you, the gratitude chart, where like if people start taking each other for granted, it starts going downhill. But what keeps a relationship alive is the state of gratitude.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I, you know, sometimes when you don't get a lesson, you get hit over the head with it. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, this was one of those lessons where I actually got hit over the head. And, you know, and I'm grateful for it too, because I'm so much, you know, I knew I had a good relationship. I just never knew I had a great relationship in terms of, you know, I had no idea that he was on Facebook keeping everybody apprised about, you know, what my status was, right? I had no idea that, you know, he basically told everybody in the hospital, no visitors. I had a tube down my throat. I was not talking. I was miserable. You know, I had no idea that he was taking care of all of that stuff, because I've always been the one that's been the caretaker in the family, right? And just to point out one thing, which is kind of interesting, through all of this, he ended up having this horrible, horrible cough. And generally, most men don't go to the doctor, right? That's sort of just the rule, you know, you kind of have to be dying. And so talk about resistance, right? Talk about pushing. I actually said, I have a request and I'm not taking no for an answer. That was how I said it. I said, I am requesting that you go to your doctor, not urgent care, and you do something about this cough, okay? And he heard me and like literally said, I'm on my way, I'm at the doctor. And, you know, and they gave him an antibiotic shot and they gave him the stuff. And when he came back, I actually acknowledged him. I said, I really want to thank you for actually listening to me.
Mm.
And it was the way that, you know, I didn't make him wrong for not going. I made it a request. I asked him, I said, if you won't do it for yourself, do it for me. You took care of me through this whole thing. Allow me to please ask you to take care of yourself. And it was a huge shift.
Hold on 1 second. I just want everybody to think about one of the 7 needs that she just brought up. What was that need that she had? It was the need to contribute back. He had been giving to you. He was And I get who this man is from your description, that he wanted to be your hero. He wanted to be a stand for you, everything he did, you know, and then he let you contribute to him too, because that's one of the things, especially if you're parents, letting your kids contribute to you is a powerful tool, because that's a sign of maturity for a kid, is to be able to contribute back.
It is. So
anything
yeah.
else, Rhonda, before we give you a huge healing kiss?
Thanks. And I do have to jump off. I apologize.
So before you go, if you can go to, and I want everybody to do this, I put the link down there, arguelesslovemore.net/feedback. There is a place where you can go and just leave a short, like 1-minute video testimonial. If you got something out of tonight, it would make a huge difference for me.
Sure.
We'll edit it down. We'll get like 5 to 10 seconds out of it. The more emotional and passionate you are, the better. So
arguelesslovemore.net.
Yep. /feedback, and it's in the chat box right now.
Okay, got it. Perfect.
Anyone else before I'm going to start wrapping it up for everybody here. Also, Rhonda, there is an opportunity here, just so you hear it. If you want to have a relationship breakthrough session, what I ask is that people make a contribution. I have an orphanage that I'm working with in Africa. If people make a $97 contribution to the orphanage, I'll contribute a relationship breakthrough session to them, and it's normally a $297 value.
That's
great. All right, let's blow around a healing kiss here. Ready? Thank you for coming tonight. We're sending you and your intestines lots of love, and
Thank
your
you.
beloved.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye, Rhonda.
All right, so let me ask, what is the cost of not learning this information? And some of you know it already. I have a friend that came to me, and he had a $250,000 divorce. It cost him the love of his life. It cost him over $250,000. He was living in a garage at the time when he talked to me. He'd gone from living in a nice house to living in a garage. So is it worth mastering, understanding the fundamental, most important thing of relationships? Yes or no? Is it like, this is yes, this is mind-laying? All right. So what I have set up, and like I said at the beginning of the class, it cost me $5,500 to fly to Sweden. It probably cost me a lot more because I didn't work for almost a month while I was there, but I flew to Sweden. I spent time with Marshall Rosenberg, and I got to travel around Sweden. So it wasn't like a bad thing. It was a beautiful event. And in that event, what I walked away with is a whole new way of using language, and I fell in love with myself at 40-some years old, which is kind of an interesting thing to say, but that was probably the most profound part of it. So what I've decided to do for people who want to take this to the next level is offer a relationship breakthrough session. And that's where we get clear on 3 things. What are your issues? And there are only 7 patterns and issues that really destroy relationships. So get clear on what are the issues, what are your options? And there are 5 options, and what actions are you going to take? So you walk away from this session clear on your issues, options, and actions. And I've had people that have gone through years and years of therapy come to me and say they got more out of that 1 hour than they did out of years of therapy, because we get right into the core of it. And it is transformational. And so what I want to do is offer that to people. And if you want that, I'm going to put the link up here. I already had it. Yeah, I'll put the link right up there. And sign up. And what happens when you sign up, you're going to go through like 5 steps. And this is where Krista had to pull out her hair because I was trying to get it all worked out. But number 1, you fill out a survey. So you help me help you, and I find out where you are. Number 2, you pick a date and time. Number 3, you watch a video. Number 4, what's number 4, Krista? Number 5 is you come and do the workshop. Do the breakthrough session with me. So somewhere on there, there's 5 steps. I only remember 4 of them right now. See, and if it works for me, it will work for anybody. So what I'd love for you to do is
Mapped out very easily. All you got to do is look at the page, breakthrough call.
Yeah, breakthrough call. There you go. Oh, breakthrough. It says breakthrough has a typing error in it. So can you type in the right one, Krista?
What do you mean on the breakthrough call page?
Yeah, no, in the chat box.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, sure.
Put in the chat box the right breakthrough.
Okay, yep.
So, and make sure, and put in the right feedback, because I am dyslexic, I am grammatically impaired, and I am spelling impaired. So.
Sure, it's right there now.
Okay, there's the breakthrough session. So get on there, sign up, watch, go through the 5 steps, whatever those 5 steps are. What I'd also love, if you could go and leave feedback. If you got did you get something from tonight? Yes or no? Thumbs up, yes. Thumbs down, no.
Yes.
If you got something from tonight, I want 2 things. One is if you'll share it vocally now, and 2 is if you'll say it forward is what I say. And it's not about a testimony about Paul. It's a testimony about what the tools can do for you and what the tools can do for somebody else. Because your voice is important. And when you speak out about what you got, that's going to reach somebody I couldn't reach otherwise. You're saying it forward. So my big close is, what did you get from tonight? You can either type it in or speak it out. So who'd like to say something? How about you, Benjamin? Do you want to speak up and say what you've gotten? Or Jeff or Michael or Dave or whoever. Or Tanj. Oh, Dave, I can count on you, buddy. Go for it.
So I'm working on 3 hours of sleep, and I was at work for at least 11 and a half hours. So, and then I had some shopping to do when I was done between this call, so that's why I was hauling stuff in the house. But I just want to say that I can't tell you everything I got out of this, because it's probably immense and maybe a little bit overwhelming in the state of mind that I'm in. But what I do notice about you is I'm connecting with what you're saying better than anybody else that I've been counseled by or been to training with before, and that's including like Stephen Lakita Carter down there in the wine country and stuff like that. So I'm super impressed with you, and I hope I get to watch the replay on this, because I know that without being so tired and involved in other things, I'll get a lot more out of it. And I've already gotten a lot out of this in the communication area. So I'm excited to learn more from you, Paul. So I definitely will be doing a review later in the week for you and sharing that out with my community.
Thank you. Is there one thing that stood out for you? And bye, Michael. Oh, were you waving bye, or you want to talk next?
I think the one critical thing is what we talked about earlier, and that's to make sure I'm asking and not pushing. Or how did you phrase that before?
Got it.
Yeah.
And what I want everybody to think about, and Dave included, is what kind of an impact would that make on your relationship if you could go from this to where it's like it's this flow back and forth.
It'll certainly have a positive impact, but I still think it takes 2.
It does. It's a lot better if you have both of you.
And I invited my partner, and she's not here, so I don't know what to think of that.
You might watch the replay.
I hope so. I'm going to share it with her.
The biggest thing we can do to enroll our partners is we change the way we interact with them, and they want to come and learn.
I'll give her credit. She's had a very long day, actually longer than mine. She was up really early this morning, so
yep.
Maybe the replay she'll be more receptive to.
All right, so let's blow Dave a kiss. Is there anybody else who'd like to share? Last one?
Yeah,
I'll jump in.
All right, well,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Tanj, and then we'll do Jeff.
Hey, everybody from Nepal. So I really appreciate, can you hear me okay, Paul?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't get the first part of the webinar because I was on another meeting. It's a busy meeting time for me, but what I did get from it was I jumped on right around the different categories of values, and being able to like understand my own value matrix was the first thing that really hit me, and going like, oh yeah, other people have different value matrices, and how is it that we can actually sit down and have a dialogue about that to establish where each other are coming from and what each other are looking for. That way we can speak to each other with that understanding. Was the first thing I really got. And then when you shared about the requests versus demands, is that's really important. I find myself very, like I'm not in any kind of romantic committed thing. And part of the reason for that is that I already feel my energy very committed to, number one, my spiritual practice and my communion with that, and then my daughter. And so it doesn't really leave a lot of room in my world. However, I want to have a very functional relationship with my daughter's father. And I don't need that to be a romantic, like, I don't need him as a husband. I would like him to be my daughter's father and be functional in that way. And so how can I, make clear requests when I feel so frustrated and angry and confused most of the time, because there's this huge cultural wobble and mistranslation. And so in order for me to make requests for him versus demands, I've noticed, just in my own observation and reflection of how things have gone down, I don't feel like I have a whole lot of space for him, even though I want to. Sorry, there goes my.
Somebody's making a request there.
Yeah, that's more of a demand. Yes, you want to eat? We'll go get bacon. Okay, why don't you find what clothes you want to wear? So that's my 2 cents on it, that I feel like I've gotten some value from, at least being able to make a request versus demanding from her father. And
yeah, and the important thing is to understand that if you make a request from a demanding place, it feels like that's a dragon and he'll get defensive. So let's blow Kiss. Are you in Nepal now?
I am. See, this is my superimposed Bodha stupa.
Yeah.
But I'm actually in my guest house room.
All right. Well, we're sending you love.
Thank you, hon. Appreciate it.
All right. So, Jeff.
Yes, sir.
Fire away. What did you get? We don't get to see your beautiful, handsome face for some reason. We just see
pressure for me, and I go right back to the absolute beginning of this webinar when you asked, "What's the reason people get into relationships?" Because I'm not really in one, and I keep asking myself why I would want to be in one and why I wouldn't, and to get that simple message of to get my needs met and really clarifying what my needs are. And I love your 7-column chart. That's great. And that my needs matter and yours do too. I mean, that's sort of the essence of all of it for me. And I sometimes have forgotten about that. So this was a great clarifier and a great reminder.
Thank you for your clarity on that too. Yeah. And we're taught not to talk about our needs. We're taught that selfish or greedy or all the rest of that. And so it's part of our culture, and we have to be careful about that.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful to be in a space where we can talk about it and have our needs be valuable, especially. So first, remember the 3 steps. Number 1 is establish what they actually are, what the priorities are, what our strategies are. Number 2 is embrace it, to actually feel okay about it, so it doesn't come across as a demand. I mean, that's like when we don't really feel good about our needs, we come across angry already because we're afraid they're not going to get met. So embracing our needs. And then the third one is being able to express them. And when we can express them, we end up with a lot of freedom.
Yep.
So thank you, everybody. Let's blow Jeff a kiss. And I think we did Dave and Krista and everybody. Thank you for showing up. I would love your feedback. I would love to do a breakthrough session. If you want to know more, you can get a hold of me. We're going to start, I think, in January, a 90-day program from ordinary to extraordinary relationships. And this is one of the foundational pieces. There are 6 other core pieces, but getting your needs met is the core of it. And then we deal with all the other parts, healing your wounds, taming your triggers. Oh my God, please do that again. We talk about Tantra and sacred sexuality in there. There's, what else do we have in there? Oh, dealing with differences. And the last part is relationship by design rather than default, because most of us end up in a relationship by default, and then that's how the relationship runs, by default, without it being by design. So thank you from people all around. We had Australia and Nepal, and I know there's somebody from Denmark that didn't, I don't see them right now, but they're going to be on the recording or listen to the recordings, and Hawaii. So lots of love to all of you. Happy holidays, however you celebrate them. I am touched that you showed up tonight because I have a strong need for contribution, and this was my chance to contribute. And getting ready for it, you can ask Krista. There was a lot of growth in getting my website done on time. So thank you. And thank you to Krista. Mwah. Thank you all. Ciao. Have a good evening. Au revoir.
Au revoir.